We're joined now by Mr. Asot Michael. He is the independent member of parliament in Antigua and Barbuda. Of course, Antigua would have just had their elections last week, Wednesday, and he has created history in a sense because he is the first independent candidate to win a seat in the parliament of Antigua and Barbuda. Mr. Michael, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you.
Yes.
Sorry for my voice. Please excuse me. I've lost my voice during the campaign. And to share with our Caribbean family in St. Kitts and Nevis my reflections on Antigua and Barbuda general elections on January 18th. First of all, give me the opportunity, sir, permit me to thank the people of the great constituency of St. Peter for their overwhelming support in the historic achievement of becoming the first independent candidate elected in Parliament from a constituency in Antigua. And sir, I just want to say, as a preview, that I believe just as Peter was chosen to be the rock upon which the Christian church would be built, the people of St. Peter have been chosen to be the rock upon which the revolution against bad leadership for better governance in Antigua and Barbuda will be built. And the rejected stone, that is to say, the long-suffering, neglected people of St. Peter, became the cornerstone on January 18th, 2023. You may ask yourself, sir, and your listeners, what was this revolution? Well, St. Peter's always been a Labour stronghold for the Labour Party. For 56 years, the Labour Party has never lost that seat. And prior to the elections, it has been represented by myself since 2004. A call to service, which has both honoured and humbled me, and now more so than ever so. So I want to thank you for having me this afternoon, sir. So you can proceed with your question.
Well, on that note, I want to start there then, because you would have, like I indicated at the start of the show, created history, and you just highlighted the fact that the seat of St. Peter, the constituency, has always been a Labour stronghold, and you were able to defeat not only the Labour Party, but the UPP and also the DNA. So, given that you were able to do this, what were some of the challenges or the problems you would have encountered to win that? How difficult was it to win that seat, to contest that election?
It was very difficult for me personally, but very necessary for freedom and democracy in our country. Because after the general election 2014, especially towards the end of the term, sir, the member for St. John City West, the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, began conducting himself in an openly hostile manner towards me, with all sorts of unfounded, baseless, nasty allegations on his radio station, Point FM, and I found that my efforts to obtain his support and assistance to fund and introduce projects for my beloved people of St. Peter were consistently frustrated and blocked by him in cabinet. His attitude also was that those people would vote for Labour anyway, so no need to spend money on them. But his reckless neglect and denial of my constituents and our constituency was not only a reflection of poor judgment on the Prime Minister, it was also being done because his hostility and his bitterness towards me was so deep that he thought by spiting and depriving the people of St. Peter, he could get them to blame me, turn against me, reject me as their representative. So he had no hesitancy in punishing them, hoping that they would turn in punishing me. But what he did, sir, also, he went a step further. He violated the very constitution of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party and the rule of law to remove me from the slate of candidates. I took the matter to the court. I have a high court ruling judgment. I won. The Prime Minister and other defendants, the General Secretary, Mayor Clay and Max Hurst, they are in contempt of court. I did not bring contempt of court proceedings against them because being a party man, I did not want to have contempt proceedings and have the Prime Minister go to being in jail or anything like that, or order from the court to imprison him. Still, he refused to relent. He ignored the ruling of the court, and he continued to behave like a law unto himself. So he called the election and he tried hard to knock me out. In fact, he told me that he would thump me in my face. The whole country, sir, the whole region heard him. The whole world heard Gaston Browne say so. And it was a shame. And most importantly, the people of St. Peter heard him. And you know what, sir? The people of St. Peter responded by giving me the biggest win of the elections.
Now, on that note as well, you said it was incredibly difficult. I take it also that a lot of resources were spent by the incumbent and others in that particular seat to try and derail you, basically. How did you function in that setup, to deal with the heavy spending? Because normally, political parties spend a lot of money around election times, and especially in constituencies that they have a particular interest in.
They spent a lot of money, sir. In fact, he took up a lot of the party monies that donors would have given him. And going back, I could say unreservedly that when we tried to go to mediation nearly a year ago, in the presence of my attorney and the presence of his attorney, we did a Zoom mediation meeting to try and settle this matter. And he said clearly to me that if I would not withdraw myself from the politics of the country and withdraw myself from running independent, that he had already raised $2 million from one investor to put behind my opponent, Warden Turner, to ensure that I lose that seat. They spent a lot of money in St. Peter's. The Prime Minister spent a lot of time and effort in going into St. Peter's in my constituency, giving out money to my constituents. I told my constituents, take the money, because I know that my constituents are loyal to me. And they will not ever vote against me to make me lose my seat, because they know that I've been tested. My loyalty to them, my love for them is not just as a representative. It goes back since 2003, before I even became the representative of St. Peter's. And I also want to say, let us emphasize the point. A lot of money belongs to the state that they spent, in that it's public money, and it has no business in election campaign of any political party. They're treating them electors with free entertainment. And that state-financed One Nation concert. They had a huge concert where they brought in international artists.
And you're sure this is funded by state funds or by the party campaign dollars?
No, it was taken out from the treasury of Antiguans and Barbuda, sir. We have evidential proof. It was funded. We always have this One Nation concert for many years, but they had it right at the election, had the Prime Minister appear on stage, and they had the Prime Minister make a little speech, and it was calculated to be done a week or 10 days before the election. And this One Nation concert is a glaring example. They took up over $2 million US out of the treasury to blatantly organize and present it as an ABLP event. And it was calculated to corruptly influence voters. And this is a violation of our election law, the Representation of People Act. It is abuse of the incumbency government, and it's an offense against free and fair elections with integrity. But at the end of the day, sir, there was not much, if anything at all, to show for all the lavish spending. I mean, he got Warden Turner to go and build some business hub, some little shops outside basketball court just 2 weeks before the election, put up massive billboards to try to fool the people, saying they're going to have business centers and they're going to have business hubs and a new development for Parham. And at the same time, although there were huge billboards portraying all these new projects, not one single mention of the Parham improvement waterfront development that OAS did since the 1990s was mentioned in the ABLP beautiful manifesto with all the pictures. It goes to show that they have no real intention to do anything for my constituency. So to answer your question, they did spend a lot of money, sir.
Let's go a little bit now to now that you're elected, now that you are the independent candidate or the independent member of parliament for St. Peter, how do you intend to represent your constituents as an independent? It's even a challenging as a opposition MP, let alone an independent member of parliament.
Well, you know, I intend to be fair. I intend to go to parliament to be positive, constructive, and uncompromising. Focus on the people's business. You know, I've been in public service, sir, for over 25 years. I'm 53 years old. I started out young under Lester Bird. I was first appointed as Chief of Staff in 1997, then a Minister of Government in 1999, and Leader of Government Business in the Senate. Then Minister of Public Works, Communications, Insurance, Junior Minister of Finance also. And since 2004, I've been the parliamentary representative. So I have a pretty good idea, sir, of how things are supposed to work. and how best I can engage effectively with members of the executive and my colleagues in the legislature to serve the best interests of my constituents. That's what I intend to do. I will work with the government of the day. I work with NGOs, the diaspora, and with friendly governments to make sure that I get the services that my constituency are in dire need of. Public infrastructure, good health care, water supply, utility services. My constituency has been the most run-down, ramshackle, decrepit constituency across Antigua and Barbuda. And now that I'm an independent candidate, let me make the point that I'm free from any obligation to toe party lines or to be constrained by partisan preferences and issues of national importance. In fact, I have the freedom to say what I see, the freedom to say what I feel, and honestly believe in my heart, so that things go right in Antigua and Barbuda family and in my constituency. It is my constituents who send representatives to Parliament. They give us a job. It's the second thing wherever the Prime Minister wants to appoint a cabinet. And I believe in these small islands where you have only 17 seats, you should not have the same members of the legislature being cabinet members, because then it becomes a conflict of interest. We speak about getting away from the Privy Council and having true independence and untying the umbilical cord with the British rule and having presidents and doing away with governor generals. If we really want to be truly free as black people in our islands, we need to also look at the separation of powers. I don't see how you can have a small parliament, and even in St. Kitts and Nevis, you have a smaller one there than we do. And you have parliamentarians, most parliamentarians who win their seats being ministers in the cabinet. It really should not be, because at the end of the day, those parliamentarians then become loyal to the Prime Minister who gives them big ministries. And then what happens? They forget that it's their constituents who actually sent them into Parliament and gave them a job in the first place. And if it wasn't the constituents who voted them to send them into Parliament, then they cannot ever be appointed or given a job as a Minister of Government in the Cabinet.
Well, you think the resources are there, though, to support something like that? And especially then you talk about St. Kitts Nevis, which have a much smaller Parliament than Antigua.
Yes, sir. The resources are there to do so many other things and to waste money on so many other things that I think, and it's my feeling, I stand corrected, that the legislature, you should not have all your members of the legislature who win their seats being in the cabinet. You can have some. You can have some, but there should be some kind of separation. And one of the other things that needs to go right in our national family is adequate allocation of public resources to meet the needs of all constituencies without fear or favor, affection or ill will. As someone who has spent significant financial resources on community needs, where government fails or refuses to honor its financial responsibility, I will be fearless and relentless in advocating and championing action in and out of Parliament for the change we so desperately need in my constituency and in this country, and speaking on national issues. I'm not just going to be a backbencher there in the Parliament and not getting up and speak. I will take each bill. If a bill has merit that the government brings it, I will speak in favor of it. If the bill needs to be tweaked and the bill is not in the interest of my constituents and in the interest of the national interest of the country and our citizens, I will speak out against it fearlessly. I have no obligation to toe any party line. And that is why I think that it's a good thing that we have more opposition members, and we have the independent candidate, myself, and the BPM independent candidate, Trevor Walker, that we have a tighter parliament. Okay? And we have a tighter parliament. There's more checks and balances. You can't have one man and one party winning 15 or 16 seats. Then they become God. They believe they're emperors. They believe they can turn man into woman and woman into man. There must be checks and balances in our system. Accountability for the executive to the legislature. And that is what I am going to seek to do as an independent candidate in the Parliament of Antigua and Barbuda.
Mm-hmm. And then speaking of the makeup of Parliament, in this election, a lot of the pundits pointed out that it was very close. The ABLP have a much smaller majority than they had previously. They now have 9 seats in the Parliament. It's a 9-6-1-1 setup. The 1-1, you being the independent and the BPM, the 6 from the UPP and 9 from the Labour Party. What does this mean for the ABLP, and especially for Prime Minister Browne, who is now in his 3rd term, in terms of his governance and how he will be able to govern? with that close majority?
Well, while the ABLP returned to government, sir, with a one-seat advantage, if you look at actual vote numbers, the ABLP in fact lost the popular vote and is therefore a minority government. The ABLP got 22,559 electors. 52.7, nearly 53% voted against the ABLP. 20,052 electors, 46.8 voted for the ABLP. The ABLP under Gaston Browne is in decline. There's no question. He's becoming increasingly unpopular with his crude, intemperate, undemocratic behaviour. And he's dragging down the ABLP party down with him. The number of electors, registered voters across Antigua and Barbuda increased 19% from 51,258 in 2018 to 60,916 in 2023. And notwithstanding that increase, the number of electors voting for the ABLP decreased by 3,011 or 13% between 2018 and 2023.
Okay. So in that sense then, the result, your result and the overall result, what do you think is the message for, not just for Antigua and Barbuda, but the wider OECS and CARICOM region, based on the results of the overall results of the election, but especially that you as an independent candidate was able to win your seat in a very strong Labour constituency?
First of all, as I said, the ABLP, Gaston Browne was wagging on the party. The turnout in St. John's City West constituency, as his constituency, won by the ABLP leader Gaston Browne, was the lowest in all 17 constituencies at 64%. This is 6 percentage points below the national average of 70%. 16 percentage points below the high of 80% among 16 Antiguan constituencies, and 21 percentage points below the highest turnout of 85% in Barbuda. I got the second highest turnout. Barbuda is a small constituency, as you know. I got 80% turnout in St. Peter. The number of registered electors in St. John's City West increased by 17%, from 2,616 in 2018 to 3,053 in 2023. Yet votes for Gaston Browne St. John's City West declined by 11%, from 1,457 in 2018 to 1,295 in 2023. So the numbers are clear that the man is going down. He reduced his popularity by 11% in his own constituency. And 15 of the 17 ABLP candidates, including Gaston Browne, got less votes in 2023 than they did in 2018. Let me repeat that. 15 of the 17 ABLP candidates, including Gaston Browne, got less votes in 2023 than they did in 2018. But by comparison, and at the risk of sounding modest, I got 1,736 votes in 2018 as the ABLP candidate running on the ABLP ticket with the whole ABLP institutional machinery behind of me. In 2023, as an independent candidate, I received 2,137 votes, an increase of 401 or 23%. He handpicked a candidate to replace me and spent more time in St. Peter campaigning against me than he spent on his own constituency. And what happened? He failed miserably. I defeated the ABLP candidate by 1,238 votes, a margin of 34%. I defeated the UPP candidate by a margin of 44%, or 1,560-something votes. In other words, I significantly outperformed all the candidates of the parties whose leader aggressively championed his personal campaign to use St. Peter as part of his plan to cancel me from the political life of Antigua and Barbuda. Because his entire campaign, so you have to understand, was an Asot Michael versus Gaston Browne. He did not concentrate on the UPP. He was spending more time attacking me with his vitriol, hatred and nastiness and bitterness on his radio station and political platforms than attacking Harold Lovell or attacking the members of the UPP. He was in my constituency several days, several weeks, trying to campaign and win voters over for Mr. Walter Turner. And he failed miserably. So, you asked me the other question you asked.
Yeah, well, the lesson for the rest of the OECS and the CARICOM region, based on, I mean, the dynamics are different, obviously, but are there any lessons you think we can learn here in St. Kitts Nevis and the rest of the region from the results and as you outlined, the fact that you were able to outperform the Labour Party candidate and all the other party candidates in that constituency?
Well, yes. The majority of the people, as I said, in Antiguans and Barbuda voted for change. And their will was frustrated by the first past the post system that we have in these islands. Gaston Browne's popularity is in decline, there's no question about that. All the polls showed that. The Don Anderson poll showed that from Jamaica. The US people sent down polling since a year ago, it showed that. And the people did not want him to continue as Prime Minister. It is a clear message. Why those candidates like Max Fernandez and Sir Robin Yearwood and Dean Jonas? Dean Jonas lost a seat that he won nearly by 900 votes last election. Come with Max Hurst in St. John's Wool North, won by nearly 700 votes, and this election won by less than 100 votes. They didn't vote against Max Fernandez or Dean Jonas. They voted against Gaston Browne. They didn't. Robin Yearwood claimed so close, won by 100 and something votes. So Robin Yearwood, which was a rock for the Labour Party, never been lost. The ABLP government is a minority government which has not enjoyed the support of the majority of Antiguans and Barbudans. And the people of Antigua and Barbuda voted for a government of national unity, as evidenced by the crushing defeat of all three political parties in St. Peter by the independent candidate. And this election was effectively decided by 13 votes cast against the ABLP for the DNA candidate of St. John City East. Let's understand that. The election was effectively decided by 13 votes cast against the ABLP for the DNA candidate in St. John City East. That's Harold Lovell's ran against Melford Nicholas. The opposition votes, which did not go to the UPP, handed the marginal seat to the ABLP candidate, Melford Nicholas, who prevailed over UPP leader Harold Lovell by only 6 votes. 6 votes. If you look at the results of ABEC, and I have them here in front of me, even St. Mary's North, Malvin Joseph, he received 1,654 votes. UPP received 1,615. He nearly lost his seat. He won by less than 50 votes. This is a stronghold for Labour. St. John's Wool North, Charles Fernandez. He won 1,563 and the UPP 1,358 and the DNA 42. He won the seat in less than 120 votes. Last election, there was a gap of 700 and something. Dean Jonas in St. George, he won overwhelmingly, got the most votes last election by nearly 900 votes in St. George. And this time around, he lost the Serpent, Algernon Watts. Algernon Watts got 2,000 and the ABLP Dean Jonas got 2,005 and Algernon Watts got 2,000, the charters had to clear 2,145 and the DNA 54. These candidates for the Labour Party, people did not vote against them because of them. Michael Browne, the same thing. They voted against Prime Minister Browne, his crude behaviour. When he gets on the radio station, curse Liat workers, curse the ECAB directors, curse people, threaten their jobs with vaccinations during COVID, send home public servants, nurses and doctors and firemen if they will refuse to take the job, tear gas innocent people on the street when they protested for their rights not to be vaccinated. You know, the message that I have to send to regional leaders across the country is that we are a minority government. He violated the constitution of the ABLP to remove me from the slate of candidates. He nearly cost the election. He nearly cost the Labour Party the election. And what we really need now is a government of national unity. That's what we need.
You mentioned that that the popular vote, that the Labour Party did not win the popular vote, and that, as you just rightly said, or just noted rather, that people voted for a government of national unity. Now, the first past the post system is what most of the British or former British colonies in the Caribbean have. Is it time then, in your view, based on that and based on what you're saying, that countries across the Caribbean look at constitutional reform, electoral reform, maybe changing the political system where it is not mirroring that of the Westminster system in the UK?
I definitely think the time has come for that, sir. The first past the post system for these small islands is not working, because you cannot have a situation with a popular vote. You have a minority government, and the voice of people, I believe, is the voice of God. And when you have seats as small, because we have certain seats, and the Commonwealth Secretariat has been speaking about this for years, since Lester Bird was there, where you have 3 very small constituencies, Sir Robin Haywood at the St. Philip's North. You have Melford Nicholas and Harold Lovelace constituency, St. John's City East. You have Steadroy Cutie Benjamin, St. John's Rural South. Those constituencies are extremely small, over less than 1,500 registered voters, when you have other constituencies having 5,583, 5,444, 5,021, 4,609. And the Commonwealth Secretariat has said you must have parity. We must have boundaries reform. And the Electoral Commission and the Prime Minister, Gaston Browne, refused. He had promised coming into office that he would have the boundaries changed. But the boundaries suit the Labour Party, so they refused to change the boundaries. And it is not right. Since the late Sir Lester Bird days, the Commonwealth Secretariat in each of the reports have said that we must have a change of the boundaries and realignment for equity. You cannot have these small constituencies you have certain constituencies having 1,011 votes. That's St. Philip South, that's Robin Haywood constituency. It's an outrageous total number of electors, 1,258. When you have another constituency, 5,848. Nonsense. In St. Peter, in my constituency, for example, I have 4,609 votes. Number of electors, sorry. There must be parity. But sir, he doesn't want to do that. But you go back to the question and fully answer the question about the message to Gaston Browne, the other regional leaders. Mm-hmm. I think the message is very clear, if you would permit me.
Yes, go ahead.
We are not going to allow ourselves to be seduced, induced, bullied, or intimidated, and we're not going to imprison ourselves with blind support of any political party. We'll vote as we think fit in our best interests. And this is what the people of St. Peter's did. This is more than just an act of defiance, dismissal, and defeat of Gaston Browne by the people of St. Peter. And it is all of those things, but it is also an act by the people who have now established themselves as the rock upon which future political dispensation will be built. And this brave and wise act by the people of St. Peter is the start of the revolution of change in this country. And politicians and political parties across the region had to understand that.
All right.
It is a clear message. I'm extremely proud of the vindication of my contribution to public life delivered by the people of St. Peter on January 18, 2023.
Well, before we go, Mr. Michael, I'll give you the opportunity for your final words. Obviously, you've said quite a lot, and we are, looking on here in St. Kitts News and the rest of the Caribbean, I think, to see how things will pan out in Parliament as an independent candidate. But your final words as we close off the interview.
I think that the election is over. There should be taken stock of what the result of the election means in terms of people's interests, in greater inclusivity, citizen participation, better governance in handling their affairs. But they're not doing so. The Prime Minister was on his radio station Saturday, still cursing people in the most nastiest, crude, vile way. And the mission to cancel me from the political life of our country started with Gaston Browne, while most of my other colleagues stood aside and looked. During the election campaign, some of his colleagues joined him and came with me, all guns blazing. He made a very, very terrible allegation against his colleagues on his radio station Saturday, saying that only one of them put up their hand to come and have a public meeting in Param because they're afraid of my money. Insinuated that his own cabinet ministers are afraid of my money. I will send you the clip. Can you imagine he's condemning his own cabinet colleagues and saying only one of them put up their hand to come? But what does that say? It says if only one of them put up their hand and he had to cancel the public meeting, it clearly says that they did not agree with what he was doing to me all along, but they were afraid to stand up. And it's regretful. It's regretful that senior members in his cabinet, like Sir Robin Haywood, my dear friend, like Mr. Steadroy Cutie Benjamin, Attorney General, and Sir Malwyn Joseph, would have never stood up to Gaston Browne and tell him what you're doing is wrong, you're destroying the Labour Party. And you know, they say it's politics and politicians will support their party leader and score their political points by any means necessary, so I don't mind that. But the point is the election's over. The people have spoken, sir. There are lessons to be learned from this election. But based on the divisive, the inflammatory rhetoric still being engaged by Gaston Browne on his radio station after the election, I mean, he called me the incarnate devil on his radio station on Saturday, and that I'm evil. It appears that the ABLP is stone deaf and has no interest in changing the undemocratic governance conduct that is isolating it from the people. I mean, I had a democratic right to seek to continue to represent the people of St. Peter. And they also had a democratic right to have me continue as their representative, if that is what they desired. The leaders of the Labour Party should consider, I think, carefully their violations of the party constitution, the rule of law, to savagely attack these rights to satisfy dictatorial excesses of one man, Gaston Browne. But unfortunately, the ABLP under Gaston Browne has developed great comfort in trampling the rights of the people, not only in my constituency, but across the country. And that just cannot continue. It cannot, sir. It cannot. I just want to say to him, the message has been sent. He's a minority government, and he must take heed. He has to come off of his high horse, now be a statesman, lead as a statesman, call this country to national unity, heal the nation, heal it, be a statesman like Mia Motley, like the former Dennis Douglas, like your Prime Minister Drew in St. Kitts. He needs to be a statesman. He needs to stop behaving like if he's in the public market. Okay, and one of the things that I believe that is important is that he calls the leaders and the parliamentarians from the UPP and the UPP party together, members of his party, of course, the NGOs, the churches, everybody, and come out and say, we are going to, the election is over, we're going to heal this country. We're going to stop the divisiveness of this country. And admit that he had a vote of no confidence in him by the 53%. It was a vote of no confidence in Gaston Browne as the leader and the Prime Minister. 53%. And when you add the other ones like the independent candidates in Zimbabwe, it probably could even be more that voted against the Labour Party. I just want to thank the people of St. Peter, thank them from the bottom of my heart for their resilience, for standing with me, for their loyalty. I just want to tell them that with everything inside of me, I will honor the faith and trust which they have appointed me to serve in this important leadership responsibility. And with everything inside of me, I will strive to exceed their expectations for the continuous improvement in the quality of life for all of my constituents. I also want to thank the other candidates who ran in this year's election. And I thank every voter, even the voters who voted against me, who went to the polls and participating in the democratic process. You know why? Our constituency and our country are better for it. And I'm humbled, honored, and deeply moved by the outpouring of strong support throughout the constituency. Because St. Peter has spoken, and St. Peter has spoken decisively about the suitability of my skills, my competencies, experience in public service, for the responsibility of building the constituency and taking it to higher heights of progress. And I pledge to work with the government, the private sector, as I said, and everyone to secure better jobs at higher wages, salaries, better education for my people, better health care, better roads, sir. If you see the roads in my constituency, the worst in Antigua. They've been neglected both by the UPP administration for 10 years and by the ABLP. Water and electricity services. And I know that the people of St. Peter love me. We are family. It's not just a representative to a voter. We have developed a bond of love over the years. They come to my home. They eat at my table. I have an open door policy at my home and my office. I see them every single Thursday. I go into the constituency. I eat at their homes also. I love them. They're part of my family. So I continue to serve them with compassion, honesty, integrity, love for the development of our beloved constituency and our country. So I want to thank St. Peter. I want to tell them that I love them. I love this country. and I'll continue doing whatever is in the best interest of Antigua and Barbuda. So I just want to thank you, sir, for having me on your radio station today. Thank your audience. Say good afternoon to the beautiful people of St. Kitts and Nevis, which I also have a very close bond of friendship with them. I also want to take this opportunity to again congratulate Prime Minister Drew on his resounding victory and the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, and to say good afternoon to my very, very good friend, former Prime Minister Denton Douglas, and to wish the Labour Party in St. Kitts all the best, and say thank you again for having me. May God bless the people of Antigua and Barbuda and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Michael. Our guest for today, Independent Member of Parliament in Antigua and Barbuda, Mr. Asot Michael. And again, like I said, we'll monitor how things are faring over there in Antigua under the new parliamentary regime. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay, then.